Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you again for allowing me to be here today. I do have a couple of coworkers with me as well who will be listening in. Misha McAllister and Becky Kelly are both talent advisors with the American Red Cross and are also going to support the program that I'm going to present. So welcome to everybody. Again, thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll get through this with plenty of time to ask questions, but I will pause as we move through the deck and give you an opportunity to answer questions. If I can't answer them today, I promise to get back to Shannon and let you all know any answers that I'm not able to do or respond to today. So just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Julie Hammond. I've worked for the American Red Cross for 20 plus years. I have been in talent acquisition my whole career at the American Red Cross in various roles. I started out as a recruiter working at national headquarters and have moved into program management the last 4 to 5 years of my my tenure here. So very passionate about what we do, really love working for the American Red Cross and passionate about the people we help throughout the world. So this is an overview of what we're going to talk about today. Not only am I going to give you an overview of LEAD, which is really what you're here for, but I also think it's a really great time to share more about the American Red Cross and what we do, our mission and our vision, our different lines of business, which is the areas that we have LEAD rotation assignments in. So we'll talk about those lines of business. We will talk about the LEAD program itself. I will give some examples of projects people have worked on and then some program testimonials. Finally, I'll wrap it up with the timeline that we expect to have occur later this fall. And again, leave some time open for questions, but certainly we'll pause as I move through the slide deck to give you an opportunity so you don't miss a question that you might want to ask. So to start out with, again, for anybody who may not be super familiar with the American Red Cross, this is our mission. Our mission is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. It's what we do every day, and each of you, if you choose to support the American Red Cross in a LEAD associate role, will be a part of that mission. And this is our vision. It describes what we do and our aspirations, what we're striving for. Again, we aspire to turn compassion into action so that all people affected by disaster across the country and around the world will receive care, shelter, and hope. Our communities should be ready and prepared for disasters. We spend a lot of time preparing in our communities to ensure that we can respond to disasters accordingly. We want to make sure that everyone in our country has access to safe, life-saving blood and blood components. That is another huge part of the American Red Cross, our blood collection process. We also want to ensure that all members of our armed services and their families can find support and comfort wherever needed. We spend a lot of time also reaching out to families to connect them with their armed forces individuals who might be deployed and need to get information or get connected across the world. So we spend a lot of time doing that. And then again, in an emergency, we want to make sure that we have trained individuals nearby and ready to use the Red Cross skills to save lives. So these are our services. And again, these are our different lines of business. These are the lines of business that we will look to have LEAD associates support. I will go through each line of business as we move through the next few slides, but this gives you a snapshot of the different lines of services that we have. Again, disaster is a big portion of what we do. We also have biomedical services, and that's our blood collection process. Training services, those are the people who help support CPR, first aid training, as well as aquatics. International services, and then services to the armed forces. So the first area that we'll talk about is disaster cycle services. Uh, Again, these are the people who deploy when a natural disaster strikes, when a family's home catches fire, when a house is flooded, especially when we talk about hurricane season, which is coming up. So not only flooding, but any kind of disaster that is associated with that. And then one loved ones are separated during a disaster and need to be reunited. We respond to over 60,000 disasters every year. 95% of our disaster relief workers are volunteers, and 90% of our disasters we respond to are home fires. I always find that fascinating because we hear so much about the different disasters across the country, again, talking about hurricanes, the wildfires, but again, home fires are one of the largest disasters that we respond to. Biomedical services, again, when you think about biomedical services and blood collection, I've got to be honest, when I first started to work for the American Red Cross, I really associated with what the Red Cross did with disasters. So that was kind of my view of the American Red Cross. I knew they did a lot of disaster response. There were a lot of community volunteers. I did not know very much about the biomedical sector of the American Red Cross. And the truth of the matter is that we provide 40% of the country's blood supply to hospitals. Everything that we do in biomed really goes back to the community. We had a large role in COVID plasma collection to help with people who had COVID. So that was a huge initiative that we worked on this past year. And again, 900,000 platelet donations and 4.7 million blood donations are collected from nearly 2.7 million volunteer donors a year. Massive amount of blood that is collected for the country. Training services. This is also an area that I knew we had a role in, but I didn't know the depth of the role. So again, we are the leading provider of health and safety courses, including disaster preparedness training, lifeguarding, swimming, and water safety training, caregiving and babysitting, again, first aid and CPR training, citizen CPR training, and then again, we also have first aid and disaster preparedness apps. So we have over 4 million people trained annually through the courses that we provide throughout the country. International services. This is an area where we partner with other parts of the American Red Cross, the International Red Cross. And we assist with mobilizing cash support. We also help and make sure that there are supplies. If there is a disaster that is pending, we want to make sure that we can mobilize and get those supplies to those areas that need them. We also deploy disaster response experts. So again, we partner and deploy people to assist with those international disasters. And then again, we stand up recovery programs throughout the world. 175 million people outside of the US benefit from what we do and the disaster and recovery efforts that we provide. And finally, services to the armed forces. This is the area where we work in and around the world. So we work in the US as well as around the world. And each year we provide over 400,000 services to military members, veterans, and civilians. There are a lot of chapters that are based near military bases, and they provide support if there's some kind of urgent message that needs to get to somebody in the armed forces. They help facilitate that process. If somebody needs to get home to see a loved one, if there's some kind of urgent need, we help facilitate that process. We also have a program that's called Get to Know Us Before You Need Us, and we present that program on base to military members so they understand what we can do for them and how we can support them. So I'm going to pause there for a moment and see what kind of questions might have cropped up in this initial introduction to the American Red Cross. I'm going to take that silence as there is no question. You can certainly come off mute if you want to ask a question too. I cannot see the chat, so I'm hoping that somebody, if there is a question in chat, somebody will be able to give that question to me and I'll answer it.
Yeah, Julie, a question did just come through the chat from Susan, who's asking which of these 5 sections takes the greatest amount of budget and workforce commitment?
That's an excellent question. I would likely say from a budget standpoint, biomed. Do not 100% quote me on that. I'd have to go back and look at the statistics, but I would likely say that is the area that really we devote the most time and money to. And I'd say, you know, manpower, paid manpower is biomed. We have a lot of volunteers throughout the organization. As you saw, you know, 97% of our force is volunteers, but I would say biomed is probably the biggest. Okay. Anything else before I hop into employment at the American Red Cross?
Nothing else in the chat at the moment, but I'll definitely let you know if another one comes through.
Awesome, Shannon, thank you. So again, employment at the American Red Cross, we employ more than 17,000 people. We have work locations in the United States, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and then international locations because our services to the armed forces we have a military presence over there. And then again, over 300,000 volunteers. The positions that we have available vary from entry level all the way to senior and executive level positions, and we're recruiting for all those roles at any given time. What I'm here specifically today to talk about is the LEAD Rotational Program opportunities for the class of 2022. So we are going to roll right into the LEAD Education and Development Rotational Program. So what is LEAD? The LEAD program is a 3-year development program designed to offer recent master's degree graduates a paid full-time employment opportunity that will result, hopefully, if you decide that you want to remain with us, in a full-time position with the organization. You will enter into the rotation assignments as part of a LEAD cohort, and we have 3 to 5 positions that we'll be recruiting for. You'll also get exposed to our culture, our operations, and enterprise-wise perspective. It's designed to diversify and enrich the talent pipeline for the American Red Cross, so it's a win-win. So again, it's a 3-year dynamic program. There are 3 12-month rotation assignments. So you start in July, that's when the program starts, and you start your first assignment almost immediately. Right now, we are identifying the 2nd-year rotations for our class that started last year, and we're identifying rotations at the same time for people who will start with us next year. Ultimately, again, the intent is to find a permanent Red Cross position that aligns with what you want to do. So it will align with your career goals, and you will have support to help you through that throughout the whole process. So some of the benefits of the program, you have access to executive leadership. So you have a sponsor who's an executive who you will get to meet with on a regular basis. You'll also have a mentor who will help you and mentor you through your rotational assignments. You'll have group coaching. And part of that group coaching is you will get to be rolled up with a larger group of team members that are already in a program with the American Red Cross. It's also called LEAD, but they're not coming in from college. They're actually internal staff, and you'll get to work directly with them and have group coaching with them as well. So you'll get exposed to other members of the American Red Cross workforce and management force. You will also get to be exposed to different assignments that will give you exposure as a leader. So the hope is, again, you'll get the tools and the business acumen to really excel in your positions here. These are some of the opportunities, or these are some of the areas that you would focus on. So again, we talk a lot about disaster cycle services. That's a pretty large chunk of our organization. Biomedical services is another area that we actually, our last cohort, most of the team members are in biomed this go around. We also have training services, and that is an area I think that is very interesting. It helps, again, prepare and respond to emergencies. International services, services to the armed forces, and then an area that I didn't cover in our lines of business, but it is also an area that we are consistently looking for rotational opportunities, is our national headquarters group. And that can include human resources, marketing, communications, finance, our diversity and inclusion team, as well as information technology. So some of the examples that I can talk about from this last rotation, especially, and I'm hoping that as we present more and do more in-person or virtual events, maybe coffee chats, we'll be able to bring some of the LEAD participants to those so they can speak to what they've been doing and how, what kind of experience they gained through the process. But one of the projects that was worked on is this Biomedical Services donor management project. And the associate worked with the team in Biomed to develop a solution to allow blood donors at targeted drives to use a technology platform to connect with health historians that are at a remote location. This allowed the Red Cross to utilize trained staff in a more efficient and effective manner and expedite the process of managing donors through this most important phase of blood donation and reduce their wait time. That's always been a struggle for us, is when people have come in to donate blood, there can be longer wait times. So this helped the whole process be more efficient. The second project example was a marketing campaign. And this associate worked to support major marketing campaigns for one of our key areas. Again, the availability of blood for patients in need. Biomedical Services has a 12-month marketing calendar for the recruitment and engagement of blood donors. And the campaign covers many national campaigns. The individual who worked on this campaign worked with various stakeholders to align and make this a more efficient campaign process through the 12-month donor marketing calendar. So again, really aligning their business acumen with the marketing campaign for Biomed. The other one that I didn't include a slide on, but I think is really quite interesting, is we did have one of our associates go to work for the disaster team, the disaster services team. And almost immediately she was deployed to a disaster in Texas and got experience really understanding how to intake people who have been affected by the process. She was able to align her emergency services background with the project she was working on, and really found it quite exciting to be on the front lines of a disaster and be able to help people. So that happened almost immediately. She started in July and she was deployed in August. So I'll be able to provide more information on other projects that people have worked on, but these are just a sample. So I'm going to stop there. Again, this is just the list that I kind of went through before. What kind of questions do you have about the program? Anything that I talked about, anything that comes to mind that I can help you gain more insight to?
Julie, we've got a question in the chat from Maddie who says, I'm curious about non-military international services. Do you think you could just share a little bit more about that?
You know, most of our programs that we work on are military, so it is services to the armed forces. There are a few examples, and I would rather kind of table the question and come up with some examples to discuss or share with you. We do have a few examples of international positions across the organization, but there's not a ton of them. It really is a bit more services to the armed forces. Now, again, you can think about the International Red Cross and opportunities there, but we are not a part of them in the sense that you would be working as a lead specialist on anything with the International Red Cross or Red Crescent Society. And so I'd like to be able to come up with some examples of positions that might be outside of that, if that's okay, and come back to you.
Yep, Maddie said,
Perfect.
Understood and thanks.
Yeah, great.
There are a couple other questions in the chat. The next one I actually think kind of follows into what you were just responding. Can you tell us where the 3 rotational opportunities might take place, whether we're in the United States or outside of the United States?
Yeah, all these opportunities are going to be in the United States, so we will not send you overseas for any of these. That may be a happy or sad thing for you. We do also we will give you relocation, so it can be anywhere in the continental United States. This year looked a little bit different, and I've shared with most of the colleges that I've talked to. We did not require anybody through COVID to relocate for any of the assignments. They were virtual. And we had a couple of the associates actually who are in Virginia, and our national headquarters are in DC. So they were pretty close to our national headquarters and the teams that they worked with. Our other rotation associate is in Texas. And again, no relocation was needed for this go around. I think that is going to be something that we will be able to give you more insight as we see what the assignments look like for next year and the coming years. But again, it will be anywhere in the United States.
And then we had the next 2 questions actually are really closely related to each other. And I kind of, again, follow up on what you were just beginning to talk about. Can you share a little bit more how the projects or assignments are selected or created? Are they predetermined? Are they based on candidate preferences or indication of any services that they might be interested in?
Yeah, so they are predetermined. We have a list, and what we do is we go out to the business and ask for them to give us a presentation on their desire to have a lead applicant or a lead associate on their team. So it can be across any line of business. A lot of the lines of business, obviously, who have an associate or have had an associate in the past are going to be the ones who probably respond the quickest. But again, it can be any line of business that I've described. And we do try to align the desires of the finalists with the desires of the business units, right? So we try to match up. We wouldn't necessarily want to take somebody who was not at all interested in marketing and put them into a marketing associate, lead associate role. So we would try to align your degree and your experience with a particular position that had been requested. Does that answer the question?
I think that answers it in the way that I asked, but because I combined Susan and Gabby's questions, if Susan or Gabby has any further question or clarification, feel free to hop in with that.
Awesome. Anything else?
That's everything that was in the chat. If anything else comes up, please go ahead and drop it into the chat, or if there is anyone that it's easier to unmute yourself and ask a question, now would be a perfect time to do that.
Okay, well, again, we'll allow for some time at the end too, if people want to come off mute and ask questions, that's great. No, I don't think we'll have any issue with that at all. So my next slide is really what the applicant profile is. We prefer you to have 3 to 5 years of work experience prior to going back to graduate school. That can be a combination of experience in your major as well. So again, we look at that and we will take a look at every profile that comes in, but that is the preference. And I think it's really helpful coming into an organization like ours. Again, we are looking for spring 2022 degree candidates in the master's programs listed. We want you to have exceptional communication skills. We would like for you to have experience managing others either directly or indirectly. So I think that's really helpful. We are a very complex organization, so it's even more helpful to be able to have had that experience, as well as understanding complex organizations. Again, interest in leading various operating components of a large nonprofit organization, and open to relocation for rotation assignments. Again, that is paid for. So everything, it is salary plus relocation. And we have a fairly robust relocation program that includes you and a spouse and family, or significant other and family, if that is your situation. So the next couple of slides, I do have some feedback from some past members. These are not members that are currently in the program, but these are people who have graduated and moved on to permanent roles in the organization. And so I'm going to go through a slide, and then the second slide is actually a video of one of our participants. So I'm going to do that and hope that we don't have any issues with sound. We tested it, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, Shannon, that it still works exactly as we tested it. So the first participant is Helene Flaxbeard, and she actually is an associate in volunteer strategy, supporting our NHQ volunteer services. And she described what she valued in the experience she had: diverse experiences and a robust stakeholder network. Each rotation, she gained new skills, learned to be agile and adaptable, worked with a diverse set of stakeholders, and gained valuable knowledge into different facets of the business. And I think that's one of the things, I'll allow you all to read this, and I'll share this slide deck when we're done as well, in addition to the video. But I think one of the things that is really attractive, and obviously I'm in the inside, so maybe I just feel like it's really attractive. I think it's a great way to really get to know the organization and get to know people in all lines of business. So again, you would be coming into a team, you'd have the team that, again, you're all graduates. So there's 3 to 5 of you that are graduates. And certainly that will allow you to become friendly and really lean on each other in that aspect. But then to come in and go into the full LEAD program with the other managers who are going through the same type of experiences, and having the same mentor and leadership availability, and that network, right, is I think really a pretty exciting thing to be able to experience. So that's Helene Flaxbeard. She still works for us in the American Red Cross, and I'm super excited to have her stay on board with us. The next person that I am going to share with you is Sydney Kopera, and I'm going to let her video play and hope that I don't have any issues
Hello.
with that.
My name is Sydney Kopera, and I'm the Marketing Product Manager for Sickle Cell, Rare, and Specialty Products on the Biomedical Field Marketing team. I joined the American Red Cross in July of 2016 after completing my MBA at NYU Stern. I've had 3 rotations in the LEAD Rotational Management Program. First, in the Regional Operations Office in the Chicago, Illinois Red Cross region, creating an organizational development program for the 72-person staff of that region. Second, I was in the National Headquarters Major and Principal Gifts fundraising team, soliciting from individuals and also developing tools and techniques that the field can use to solicit donors in their areas. Finally, I was on the biomedical field marketing team, developing marketing plans for signature events and leading a multifunctional project to develop a business case for an organization-wide program. I also deployed remotely to disasters several times, helping to raise funds and in-kind donations from generous supporters in times of disaster. My 3 takeaways from the LEAD program are: first, the network of peers, leaders, and executives who will become your champions, your friends, and your advocates throughout the program and beyond. Secondly, the educational programming is high quality and engaging. One of my personal highlights is presenting a project to senior leadership, including the Red Cross CEO, Gail McGovern. Finally, this program rewards those who are eager and flexible and excited to take on new challenges and learn new things throughout their rotations. Each rotation was very different, and I found that I grew my leadership, teamwork skills, and above all, my network within the Red Cross outside of the LEAD program. Thank you very much, and best of luck. Hello.
So, I think again the takeaway from her as well is that the network that she had to lean on in her rotations. I will say, again, the other thing that might be a question to everybody is, what types of people have we had in the program? And we really have run the gamut. We have had MBAs, we have had MPPs. We've had Masters of Arts with a focus on emergency management. So we've run the gamut as far as the types of degrees that have entered into this rotational program. So if it sounds a little bit business heavy, I would not be concerned about it. If you want to learn about something, about an organization that is dynamic and diverse, such as the American Red Cross, I think there's opportunities all across the way for anybody who is coming out of a master's degree program.
Julie,
yes,
we had one question come in through the chat during those testimonials. They are asking, how common is it, or is it common, that someone resonates so strongly with one of their rotational postings that they drop out of the rotation early and stay where they are?
That has not happened. So the expectation really is to go through the rotations to get, again, to get the experience in the different lines of business or the different areas of the organization. So that hasn't happened. I can't say definitively it wouldn't happen, but I think that the goal would be to at least can go ahead and finish the rotational program, and then if they were very excited and energized to work for a specific area in one of their previous rotations, that would likely be where they would go back and have conversations with that line of business, their mentors, their managers, the team that also supports them, which is our other part of HR, our talent management group that actually we handle the recruitment part, and then we have a team that actually handles everything from the time that you would come on board forward, and that would be a conversation to have with that team as well. So
great, thanks. And then I know you are just about to start talking about the timetable. And as you are going through that, we did have a question just around clarification as you're describing that. For anyone who is in this session who is a 2021 graduate, whether they would be eligible to apply for the 2022 cohort.
Is this 2021 now or 2021 in the fall? We have
2020. So, I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption here. I'm assuming that these are students who might be graduating in June. So
in June, okay.
Yeah, current student now
graduating
in June.
Yeah, so at this point in time, we are not looking at graduates of the spring because it is you wouldn't start until next year. And it is really for the graduates of the 2022 class. I would say though, if you are very excited about working for the American Red Cross, we could connect offline and see if there's some kind of match for opportunities outside of the rotation program that maybe we could look at for you. But we are looking for the 2022 graduates. Possibly we have looked at December 2021 graduates, but normally we do try to keep it to the spring 2022. And again, we'll do recruitment every 2 years going forward. So this is the rotational program fall recruitment schedule. We will open up the application process in early August. And I recognize that you all do not go back to school until late September. We will be doing virtual and in-person events, coffee chats, other presentations. I'm hoping we have the ability to do another presentation or two, or even have a networking night where we can bring some of our previous graduates in and let you all meet with them. So that will be happening now through September 2021. October 2021 is virtual interviews. So likely, given the state of everything with COVID, I think a lot of our interviewing will be virtual. We are, working on timelines and events, and may be able to pivot and do in person where it's allowed. I still have a pretty strong sense that most areas are looking at virtual. Late October, early November, we will do final round interviews. Those typically have been in person, and our plan is to do in person unless, again, there is a different mindset around what's going on with COVID at that time, and we'll have an action plan in place for that. But we do fly the finalists to DC if it's in person, put you up in a hotel, allow you to meet with the leaders and interview accordingly, and then we will make offers mid-November with an acceptance date in December. And then finally, the new program associate hires will start in July of 2022. And this is just a quick, we will be posting the positions on our career site, but we'll work with your school to also post them where necessary for you all to see them when they go up for recruitment. So I'll be working very closely with the schools to make sure that happens, as well as our talent advisors who will be supporting the different schools that we have engaged. So that's the application process. And that is the end of my formal presentation. Absolutely love to hear other questions that came in, or if anybody would like to come off mute and ask a question, absolutely do that. And again, excited to be able to present to you.
So maybe while we're waiting to see if any questions are coming into the chat. So just going back to that question around the timing and the application cycle, it sounds like you mentioned this is a program that recruits every 2 years. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. So our next recruitment cycle will be in 2023 for a 2024 class.
Got it. And we have a question. The application process opens in August. When are those applications due?
We will keep them open through at least the end of September, probably more likely, especially since we've engaged you, through mid-October.
Awesome. And this is, you know, the reason that we invited Julie to come do this presentation right now, because the application does come up really soon at the beginning of the academic year for next year. So for those that may be interested in applying for it, we wanted to make sure that this was on your radar, because our team will send out more information about it right at the beginning of school, when I know there's a lot of other pieces of information flying around.
Awesome.
We had another question. How many positions do you fill with this program each application cycle?
So the first cycle, and we did take a pause. So we've had 2 recruitment cycles. The first cycle we hired 4. We actually offered 5. The 5th person declined due to personal reasons, and so we wound up with 4 people. The second one, we again had planned on having 5. By the time we got through the offer process, we wound up with 3. So we typically will hire 3 to 5 people, and that is the plan going forward, is somewhere between 3 and 5. If we get 5, that's great, but we've been very successful with this mighty, small but mighty team of 3 this last cycle. Anything else? I love, I'm used to quiet. We have a quiet talent acquisition team, so I'm used to silence. But anybody have anything else that they wanted to know anything about?
So far, there's not another question sitting in the chat. We can definitely stay in this space. You know, we have this space for another 15 minutes. So if there are any other questions, I will go ahead and stop the recording. And maybe at this time, if anyone else has questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, since this will be a little bit more informal time. But thank you all for joining. And if you have to hop out, feel free to hop out, and I am going to stop the recording.